that San Diego State had a great week, right? By everyone's.
The basketball program
You beat Creighton, you beat Houston. I mean, Houston has been as good as San Diego State's been the last 5 years. Houston's been right there, if not better, which very few programs can say. I mean, they've been among the best in the sport. Like San Diego State, you got this veteran Houston team with some All-American types, LJ Cryer and their forwards, and I mean, just a great team.
You told me that you said Houston is basically like San Diego State in like 3 years because
they have 24-year-olds.
They are.
Exactly. So, you got this veteran Houston team against all these first-time starters for San Diego State, and the Aztecs take the punch back and win in overtime. Mm-hmm. And then, me, today is Christmas for me.
It's net ranking
because
day.
The net rankings came out.
Okay.
Hallelujah. So it was honestly, it was hard for me to sleep. I took melatonin last night
because you couldn't sleep.
I checked it at midnight.
I'm like,
maybe it'll be up at midnight. I then listen to this. I get up to use the restroom at let's say 5:50.
First thing you looked at your phone, right?
Immediately. I immediately Googled net rankings, and I go to the site, and it's still like the 2024, like last March rankings.
You're psycho.
But then at like 6:02, just in bed, like refreshing. And there's John Rothstein, like the initial net rankings of do. So I click on it.
You're immediately.
And I'm like, where are we? I'm like, where's San Diego State? Like 7th? No, 12th. I'm scrolling. 20th, must be like 5th, 20th, top. Yeah. And then I get to like 50. I'm like, I got to re-scroll.
You're like, whoa.
I'm going back to the top.
Where are they?
They're 60th in the net, which is a damn conspiracy, but I'm not going to lose my mind over it.
Sometimes Ken Pump's full.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to lose my mind over it. There's no data in this thing. It's going to sort out. The Aztecs have played like 15% of their games.
So you see Irvine like 7th or
24th.
24th.
It makes zero sense. Like they've beaten Houston and Creighton, and they've lost to Gonzaga and Oregon, two of the best teams in the country. Like 60th. It's not good enough. Then there's other teams that have played nobody. They're like 10th. So I'm not going to lose my mind over that. All I can concern myself with
80 against Occidental.
All I can concern myself with, that game doesn't count.
I know it doesn't.
Is what I'm seeing with my eyes. What I'm seeing is them beating Houston in overtime, taking a punch and punching back. The way they played so well against Creighton. I know they're without their starting point guard in that game, Stephen Ashworth. But how could you not like what you're seeing if you're a San Diego State basketball fan?
I remember before the season started, after last year's season ended, and you had all the moves, right? You lost Jaden Ledee. Lamont Butler transferred to Kentucky.
You had Elijah Saunders go to Virginia, Micah Parrish, Ohio State.
Right.
Reese Waters-Foot.
Right. So all of these moves. And I remember sitting here. We had callers and the text line, and everyone's like, oh, it's ridiculous. I can't believe there's so many changes. What are they going to do here? What are they going to do here? And I remember us talking and saying, look, I'm excited about this new team because this is what college sports and college basketball especially is. You don't really get now in the day of the transfer portal and NIL guys staying at one place for 3-4 years. And then obviously with the COVID year, you could have had the guy stay for longer than that.
Right.
But you don't get that often. And with this new team, very young, with Goon and Pharaoh Compton and Taj Gorville and
BJ
Davis, and then Miles Bird getting elevated into that starting role. Like a lot of new, Kimo Ferrari came over here. He hasn't played, but you have a lot of new on this team. And I was excited because I'm like, I want to see what this team's about. I want to see Dutch and this coaching staff, what they can mold this team into. And like, so far, dude, as early in the season as it is, and usually a Dutch team starts rolling around January and February, I am so impressed with what I've seen so far. They have looked like they've played basketball together
for a while,
for a long time.
But remember what we said also in the offseason, which was that, the names and the faces change, but you know what doesn't is the coaching tree of Steve Fisher, Brian Dutcher. Mm-hmm. So, like, think about that. Over the last 25 years, they've had 20 good teams, and there's been a lot of change. Yes, it's a new era. You did have players for 3 or 4 years. 0 of the 9 in the rotation in the national championship game are here, except Aguicaropi's on their staff.
Yeah.
And then last year, none of their starters are here. None of them, because Reese Waters is out, and he wasn't even starting in the second half of the year. Yet, they develop. Look at Magoon Guath. He was developed during a redshirt year. Look at Jaden Ledee. He was developed during a redshirt year. Look at Malachi Flynn, developed during a redshirt year. I mean, Farrell Compton looks the part immediately. That's incredible. This guy's going to be one of the best players in the Mountain West as a true freshman. Right now for San Diego State is about this. A, it's maintaining a level of consistency because you're young. It's one thing to do it against Houston. What do you look like Wednesday night in Fresno? They
got a freshman in Goon. They have Farrell Compton. They have Miles Bird, who's a sophomore. They have Taj DeGorville, who's a
BJ Davis.
BJ Davis,
sophomore.
Those 5 dudes right there are all getting significant playing time.
Yeah, and think about this. Now, it's like we talk about with the Padres, like, are you playing for 2025 or 2026? We're always like all in, all in, all in. And everyone's all in right now in the Aztecs because they just beat number 6 Houston. But if you allow yourself to dream for a moment about not just this year where they can be really good, but they just got $1.15 million in this event that they didn't have a year ago.
That's really good.
If you can retain this roster, BJ Davis, 3rd year, Miles Bird, 4th year, Farrell Compton, 2nd year, and so on and so forth, you go from a really, really good team that has a chance right now to have postseason aspirations and maybe make a run to a preseason team that's going to be like among the top 10, 12 teams in America.
The one thing that last year's team, and they did make the Sweet 16, but so
yeah, exactly. And it worked out in the end.
It worked out in the end, and we were talking a little bit about this over the weekend. The one thing that last year's team didn't have that I think this year's team does have is that fire. Like, because
they're hunting, not being hunted.
Right.
Yeah.
And last year's team, we heard at points of the season, it was a little difficult.
It's like, just get me to the tournament.
It was a little difficult to get these guys up to play some nights because you're coming off a national championship game appearance. You do have a lot of returning starters. You had 4 guys returning from that Final Four national championship team. 3 of them starters.
Yeah, because you had Trammell, Butler, Ledee was in there.
Parrish.
Yeah, you had a lot coming back.
You lost a lot,
but you had a lot coming back.
Yeah. And so there was a little, I'm not gonna say complacency last year, but sometimes you make a deep run, you're on top of the world, you're just in the national championship game, kind of thinking to yourself, like, what else do we have to prove? Like, you know what I mean? And so last year's team, while it was still a very good team making a Sweet 16, that's nothing to hang your head about at all. Like, that's going up in the rafters. It's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, one of their top 5 seasons, maybe.
But we knew last year's team, it was a little difficult at times as far as the motivation factor goes for some games and some nights.
Sure.
This year's team, as new as it is, I don't feel like that at all. I feel like they are hungry. I feel like so far, like the effort level every single night has been top notch. While last year's team, there were maybe some nights where you're like, effort level might not be there. They pulled out with the win because that they're very talented. But this year's team so far, I just feel a different hunger level to them compared to last year's team.
I think it's fair. And I would say, like, but here's the thing. It's like you get up for the Vegas tournament and you get up for Gonzaga. And these last 4 games are like, I mean, they have the hardest strength of schedule in America. So that's like a factual statement, according to both Ken Pom and Ned. Now, what happens Wednesday night in Fresno with the young team? Are you playing at that same ability, competitive level? Like, are you able to do that? Can you put Vegas behind you and get ready for, how it is, road game of the conference? There's not going to be anyone there. It's Fresno. 2 years ago when they went to the national championship game, do you remember this game? It was February. We could look it up. I don't know what the final score was. They beat Fresno something like 43-41.
Oh, my God. Yes, I remember that.
I mean, it was Miles
really
Bird today told the media,
really
I think he said we set basketball back 1,000 years.
Yeah.
That day.
Yeah.
6 weeks later, they were in the national championship. And that happened in Fresno with that team, with like Nathan Mensah and Akuka Robe.
Yeah.
So, like, nothing's a guarantee is my point, especially on the road.
And look, you're going to have nights, too, when you're off.
Shots don't go in.
Yeah, and you're going to have some nights where you're just not feeling it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that.
Long year.
But early on, this team compared to last year's team, early on, it just feels like a different energy. It's a different energy with this group of kids. And I'm like, look, the talent level on this team and how young they are, they can keep this core together, like you said. I mean, BJ Davis, the jump he's made from last year to this year, playing 0 minutes last year and getting starting role now, and with Reese Waters out and putting up double-digit figures almost every single game and being an amazing scorer, like just Brian Dutcher and the job that his staff has done early on. You can't say enough good things about this team and about this coaching staff. And I just hope that they continue to build off this. And I hope also that just by beating Houston and beating Creighton and competing with Gonzaga, competing with Oregon. They didn't win those games. I hope they don't look at that and say like, "Oh, we're really good." Like they still have to build.
Fall out of bed in that spot.
Yeah, you still have to build here, and so winning the 2 games that they did, great. Losing the 2 games that they did, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I bet you the coaching staff sitting there saying like, "Yeah, we would have loved to win those games," but it also gives us like a lot of, "Hey guys, you're still not good enough because you still didn't beat Gonzaga." And you didn't in Oregon, like who's undefeated right now, you still have a lot of work to go. There's room for growth. Absolutely.
And I would say this, getting Reese Waters back. And the question I hear every single day or see every day on social media, what are they going to do with their lineup? What are they going to do? It's like getting Fernando Tatis Jr. back. And you already have someone that's playing a good right field. It all works itself out. You can't have too many good players. Like there's no such thing. If you have 6 starters, that's a good thing. It's a lot better than having 4 starters.